You ripped my shirt!
You were holding on to that in your heart.
I was ready.
And I'm so thankful because that's my favorite line from this movie. Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. Today we're discussing a movie called Mandy from 2018. And I gotta tell you,
Nicolas Cage.
this is one of my favorite movies.
This movie is so engaging. Like, it's not a pleasant movie.
No.
It's not funny in that some moments are so absurdly surreal that it's jarring in a way that could be considered comedic.
On the first viewing of this movie, at no point is there a moment where you know what's going to happen next.
Right. Yeah.
And you got to go into this movie cold. If you're listening to this movie, to this podcast, because you're like, I don't know, I'm on the fence. Do I want to watch it? Do I not? Don't listen to this and
Turn
then
it
go.
off.
Don't turn this
Go watch
off.
And
read no reviews. Read no description. Read no nothing. Just put it on.
if at all possible, watch it somewhere that does not have ads.
Yeah.
Because it breaks the tension.
Yeah, it's free on the Roku channel. You could stream it there, but the ads are terrible. This movie never needs to be interrupted with ads.
I think it was $3 on Amazon Prime.
There's no way you're 35 minutes deep in this movie and then an advertisement for a new depression medication comes on and you aren't completely like, what? You need to be immersed.
Yeah.
So rent it on Prime or buy it. Or rent it, whatever. I think it was $3.99 to rent the SD version because I think the HD is a ripoff.
The SD version, is that what we watched tonight? Yeah, the SD version looks great.
Totally sufficient. So anyway, go and watch it and then come back.
And I would say this is a movie that really comes up to this line where like horror and comedy have this common feel of being surprised, being jolted out of your expectations.
Yeah.
Like that's what a joke is, but that's also kind of what horror is. But one in comedy, you have the break of expectations and then a kind of resolution of the contradiction.
Yeah.
But in horror, you don't necessarily have a resolution.
You don't get a punchline.
And so you get a similar vibe in this movie that feels like it could be comedic if they wanted it to be. But you never get that punchline, that resolution.
Yeah, it rides the line, it rides it hard, and it rides it well. You know where it is streaming for free? Or at least according to the search on my Roku? Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I really hope that there's some sort of way that some kid isn't like, oh, Mandy. I wonder if that's about a girl, puts it on. Like, I hope it's the cover.
And then the parent looks at it. Oh, it's Nicolas Cage. He's so goofy.
Well, sometimes the cover is like Nicolas Cage looking dramatically off into a forest, which is totally misleading. And sometimes it's like purple and pink in the background, which is okay. But then sometimes it's the moment from the end when he's completely covered in blood and he's smiling at the camera.
Yeah.
That's the one they need to use on Disney Plus because it sets the tone.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting into. If it was any of the other ones, no. Just no, never watch this with a child.
Never
watch this with a kid.
I thought about recommending this to some friends, and I haven't yet because I know that they won't have a viewing time frame, a viewing space where the kids won't interrupt them.
This, and you know what else? This is a movie person's movie.
It is. Yeah.
And I recognize that. And that may be why it has like 6.5 stars. It has 6.5 stars on IMDb.
Turn that shit up to 11.
What the fuck? And a lot of the criticisms were like, it didn't have any plot. It was all style and no substance. I'm sorry, what movie were you watching? Were we watching the same movie? You know what? I think if you're
it could be if you're distracted watching this.
You know what? Yeah, this is not a don't put your phone, fucking put your phone down.
I didn't even like feel tempted to just sit on my phone and scroll during this movie because it's so engaging.
Yeah.
But if you're extra susceptible to that, put your phone in the other room, put this on where there's no commercials.
Yeah, if you
recommended viewing experience.
If you were hopping in and out of this movie, it would be like, what's even happening? I don't know what's going on. I don't And you know what else? The pacing is very 70s. And we have trial by fired ourselves through 1979 movies.
I really enjoy the long shots with the fixed camera position, and all we're doing is slowly zooming in or zooming out and just following a character and having them just have to act through an entire 90-second scene.
Yeah. No, that wasn't a criticism.
For real.
It was a statement. I love it. I fucking love it. You know what else I love in this movie? The lighting. And the lighting, to me, is very reminiscent of the Dune miniseries. I
was going to say the same thing.
Oh, my God.
The lighting sets the vibe so much.
It is phenomenal. It is a work of art. The lighting in this movie is a work of art. The way they do the colors, the way they do the color shift when the characters are in sort of a surrealist headspace, and then when they're in a more mundane headspace, and the way that they light the foreground and the background differently, and the way they do the scene, the initial scene where we get the Black Skulls coming to take Mandy and to tie up her husband, Red, or her partner. It doesn't really matter. When they infiltrate the house to start the whole plot rolling for the one-man army that we're about to experience, they have that electric light that goes up and down the window, and it ends up flashing completely black and then like an electric blue. And it's freaky as fuck, and it works so well. And I get so tired of movies that are like, you can tell this is dramatic because it is dark. And it is so dark, you don't even know what's happening. You're welcome. This was a gift.
Yeah.
This movie was like, hold my beer. Also, bring me that spotlight and that purple film.
I'm going to give you so much off-axis lighting. There's going to be so many shadows. It's going to be great.
It is so good. I mean, this movie is dark. A lot of it is dark, except when there's a couple of moments when we're in the real world, like firmly in the real world.
Yeah.
And we get some really cool lighting, but it's bright lighting. And like when they're at the lake in the beginning and we get the sun and we have the lens flare from the sun.
Yeah.
And then they're on the boat. That's probably the most 70s shot in the whole movie. When they're on the boat and we just look at the boat for a while, and then we zoom in on them on the boat, and then we pan out really slowly. It felt very 70s. And there's a lot of scenes in this movie where they just have to stop and stare at the camera and deliver these long soliloquies while they're just staring into the camera. Like when the cult leader is talking to Mandy.
Oh, yeah. And they keep overlaying Mandy's face on his, fading in and out.
While he's talking. And he has to
keep his eyes in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
For, I don't know, probably 2 minutes.
And deliver this whole long speech that he has to deliver very emotionally. This is so good. This guy does such a good job. Initially, they wanted Nicolas Cage to play the Jeremiah Sands character.
I can see that.
Well, they wanted Red to be young.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think Nicolas Cage would have come off more goofy.
Yeah, I don't think he could have played. I think he does great for what he does. I don't think he could have done. And he said that. He's like, no, I think I'm better as Red. And they're like, no.
Yeah,
and so they walked away for a year.
Like 6 months later or a year later.
Elijah Wood brought him back. because
is that
Elijah
who
Wood's one
brought
of
it?
the producers.
Yes.
And he was like, okay, you're right. We think you'd be great for Red. We're getting somebody else for Jeremiah Sands.
Yeah, they rewrote the necessary parts of the script.
And we get male nudity, full frontal male nudity.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite scenes because it's our favorite non-erotic
Nudity.
scene.
Yeah. I don't think we even get any female nudity in this movie.
Hand drawn.
Just cartoon.
In the cartoon segments, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you didn't watch the movie. Didn't you not listen to me? Turn this off and go watch it now.
We'll wait for you. We'll be here when you get back.
We'll be here. No, he pulls open his robe and it's like full frontal, which he didn't want to do.
Yes, he was extremely resistant to it.
They talked him into doing it, but he was like, fine, but I won't do it like erect, which I get. It's fine. But we do get he kind of jiggles as if masturbating towards the end of it.
Yeah, like he's trying to get himself riled up.
But she's laughing at him, which is my favorite scene. And I know if you're watching this and you're like, oh, she's so dumb because then they just kill her or whatever. But no, like I love that moment where she's like, you wrote this song and
it's about you.
And it's about you. And then she just starts laughing. And this man has been like, I'm touched by God. I was chosen by God and no one recognized it. He's a failed musician, basically. Right. And his sour grapes was, I think I'll start a cult. Kind of like Charles Manson. I think I'll start a cult and then these people will all worship me because I should have been worshipped for my musical talent and I wasn't. And then he's like, and behold my dick. And he opens his robe and she starts laughing at him, which completely undermines his position as a person of authority in the cult, that her evaluation of him is necessary for him to maintain his position, and he loses his composure when she laughs at him, which... Well, it's because it's the best thing you can do to fragile masculinity.
Exactly.
Is point out its fragility.
Yeah.
Is laugh in his face. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is even happening right now? This is all so ridiculous. You're ridiculous. And so she laughs at him and then she gets burned alive.
Yep.
While Red is tied to a fence with barbed wire, which is
a barbed wire gag.
Fucking brutal, honestly. Yeah. And I have this t-shirt.
The tiger shirt.
I have the tiger t-shirt because I love this movie so much. I bought merch for it. And every time I wear it, I'm like, oh man, is anyone going to notice what this is from? And nobody ever does because I don't know what this movie is. And I hate this.
Underrated?
Criminally underrated. Underhyped. I only say that jokingly because I feel like that gets used so much. We're like, well, this one's underrated. Well, is it? Because I've seen a lot of, like, The Thing gets called underrated. Well, I see it on like every single film blog. Is it really underrated at this point? Or
right.
At what point do we become rated? You know, like, I don't know. Where's that threshold? But apparently this only made like $250,000.
Wasn't this a crowdfunded movie?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. This was that one that was done by, it's that movie theater that crowdfunds movies. And you decide which ones they make by buying into it.
Right. So then when they make the movie, they're already fully funded.
Yeah. And it's a Simon Pegg thing. And it's so that they can make, I think he is part of the project.
Okay.
And it's so that we can get movies that are artistic and interesting and pushing the envelope, but don't have to have commercial appeal.
Right.
Because
they have artistic appeal, but not mass. I was going to say mass market.
Yeah, for the
mass
masses,
appeal.
Whatever, for the general market, because it's resisting the Marvelization of movies, which is really I approve of, because I mean there's nothing wrong with Marvel, but it has driven us into this. Well, if your movie didn't make $1 billion, are you even worth anything at all?
Yeah.
So not only is the lighting in this movie amazing, the music is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The long, drawn-out tones. It's just so good. Like, we get the opening where we're flying over these trees, and then we get our first card, which isn't even a title card. It's just the location.
It's a location, yeah. We don't get the title card of the movie until an hour and 15 minutes in.
Correct. And then we don't get the director credit until the final credits.
Right.
Which is written and directed by the same guy, which is Panos Cosmatos. I looked up to see what else he'd done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, well, hell yeah, that's great. But I didn't see anything that I was like, oh, I recognize him from that. Maybe we'll have to track down some of his work.
Yeah.
The other really cool thing about this is that we talked about the pacing. We talked about the shot lengths. Shot length is like a thing, one of those things that is invisible until you know the terminology. And then you're like, oh, right. That shot, because it's like kids' television shows, if they have a shot length of shorter than like 10 seconds or something, you're not supposed to let your kids watch it because it's like flicking through images so quickly, it hacks the brain.
Right. Yeah, it's hyper stimulating.
Right. So some of these were minutes long. 5, 6, 10, 15-minute long shots. There's the scene with the chemist where Nicolas Cage has maybe 15 lines of dialogue in this whole movie. He is face acting so hard. It feels like he has more dialogue, but he doesn't. He's not actually opening his mouth. He's just staring with intensity.
Half of the vocalization sounds produced by Nick Cage in this movie are him screaming.
Yeah. And it's the funniest part about this is I just watched National Treasure with the kids where he has the worst hairpiece. I hadn't watched it. It's 20 years old now. National Treasure came out in 2004. And Nicolas Cage has had a very interesting 20 years since we saw him in National Treasure. And so when you go back, some of the lines that he's delivering where he's supposed to be like, I'm just really impressed with the situation and myself right now. You're like, oh, is this satire? Oh, no, this was supposed to be. I remember not feeling taken out at all when I first watched it. And now watching it with Nicolas Cage, I'm like,
right. Having seen some of the other stuff, like Mandy, like the Dream one. I don't think you watched it. But the one where he's showing up in everybody's dreams.
Yeah.
And I have really bad secondhand embarrassment. And that he plays such a cringy character for that movie, but he does it so well.
Yeah.
Like I'm impressed by how well he acts that out. But it's like painful to actually attend that movie.
I don't know how Nicolas Cage is the best worst actor and the worst best actor you've ever seen, but that's exactly what he is. He's simultaneously crushing this, but at the same time you're like, that's Nick Cage crushing this. Mm-hmm. Like he never disappears into the character, but you don't give a shit because he's doing such a good job being the character.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Keanu Reeves. I think it's his accent. He has a very Nicolas Cage voice.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't a moment where he doesn't have the Nick Cage voice. It's like when they hired Keanu to be in Dracula and they told him he had to have a British accent and he was like, okay. And then he was Keanu Reeves with a British accent, which means not at all. Right. And it's literally, if that movie had not had him in it, we would be talking about it more than we are.
Right.
And he's not bad in it. If they just let him be himself, he'd have been fine. But the accent is horrific. And that's why you don't see Nick Cage ever having an accent, except if it's played for laughs. Like in Renfield, he has his Dracula accent.
Right.
But it's supposed to be funny.
Right.
So
and you can tell that is an affected voice.
Yeah.
But then you have like Gary Oldman.
Oh.
Who completely disappears into the character.
Right. Some actors do and some actors don't. That doesn't make them good or bad. It's just, like Brad Pitt's always Brad
contrast.
Pitt.
Yeah.
What he's always going to be. Keanu Reeves is always Keanu Reeves. But I love them in everything they're in. It's fine. Right. It's just that they are who they are. You know who they are. And that's why you have to be careful who you cast them for.
Right. Like the cult leader character, it would undermine it to have it be Nick Cage as the cult leader.
You need to fully buy into that character
Yeah.
because he has to be completely despicable. And that guy crushes it. He does such a good job. For what little screen time he actually has,
Right.
he has such a huge presence in the movie. And I feel like the thing that really sets off the rest of the movie for me is how long we linger on the romance of during the opening.
Right. We really established that.
Yeah, it's not like, okay, here's a dude, he's a badass dude, and he's got a hot chick. Oh no, the hot chick died. Badass dude is going to go do badass shit. It's like, here's two weirdos who live in this forest together and do weird
like working
shit
odd
together.
jobs.
And just so they can spend time with each other because
that's their goal.
Yeah, because being at home together, eating a microwave dinner and watching bad 80s television is the goal. And everything else is just noise. So Nick Cage's character Red is a lumberjack. She works, Mandy, his partner, works at a like convenience store, which she barely works at. She's just reading a book.
Right.
And the lady walks up and she's like, "Is it a good book?" She's like, "Yeah, no, yeah, it is." I mean, she's reading a book. It's a prop book, which I kind of want to be like, "Oh man, I'd read that book." It's by Lenora Torr. And we really get how much they enjoy being together. We even get this sweet scene where they're laying in bed and he goes, "What's your favorite planet?"
Right.
He's
She
like,
said,
"What's your
I was
favorite
reading
planet?"
that book about the galaxy. Oh, the big thick one? Yeah, that one.
"Okay, what's your favorite planet?" And she's like, Jupiter, because it's got this storm. And she is doing a really great job. And this is an actress who traditionally plays very pretty characters.
Right.
And Mandy, it's kind of like Charlize Theron in I think, Monster,
Mhm.
where she's still pretty because she's still.
They did her makeup to make her less conventionally pretty.
Yeah, Andrea Riseborough, that's her name. And Linus Roach is the guy who plays Jeremiah Sand, the cult leader. But she has this long, sort of just straight, long hair. And she has one eye that's like the pupil is bigger than the other. And then she has scars down the one side of her face. We don't get any of that explained, and that's perfectly fine. This is a great example of when you can make a world huge and you can make a character feel deep without actually giving you anything about that character.
Yeah.
Just by giving her like I wonder where those scars came from. She's got a past.
Right.
Okay.
But it was long enough ago that she doesn't like the character doesn't need to justify that at all.
And we get them sitting on the couch together and she's leaning on him and there's static on the TV, but she hasn't moved because he's holding onto her. And if she moves, he'll wake up and he's sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
But then she wakes him up because he's having a bad dream. And it's just a really sweet moment. And then she's walking to work one day and a van full of cult people drive by. And Jeremiah sees her. And because he thinks that everything belongs to him, he wants her and he's going to go get her. And this is when we really make the transition for me from like horror, psychological horror into almost dark fantasy.
Yeah.
Because for me, the strength in this movie is when we start walking that surrealism line of, is it actual fantasy?
Right.
Is it drugs?
How much of this is in his head and how much is actually happening in reality?
Why can it not be both? Is it both? Is it drug-fueled fantasy, but actual, like they've moved so far beyond the human realm, they've dipped into actual supernatural shit? Because what does it for me is the moment when Jeremiah Sands sees Mandy, and then they go to just a regular everyday motel, which is kind of our last touchstone of actual reality.
Right. Because then he gets
second to last.
He gets brother. What's his name?
Yeah, the Crowley's the bad guy from Good Omens.
Yeah.
I think his name is Hector. Hestor. I think it's Hester.
Yeah, he's Hester in Good Omens.
Yeah, but he's like, "Do you have the horn of Abraxos?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he pulls out this really grubby looking ocarina thing. And he's like, "Good."
Like a lava rock ocarina.
He's like, "Good. Go get her for me." I want her. And then he leaves and they're sitting in a van. And the guy with him is like, are we in the right spot? And he's like, yeah, we're in the right spot. So he gets out and plays the ocarina. And then 4 demon bikers from hell show up.
They're sitting there waiting. And
Yeah.
the other guy's like, ugh, this is taking so long. How long are we going to have to wait? And then the
they
lights show up.
Yeah. The lights drop. The light changes. And we get this is some horrifying character design is what this is.
Yeah.
Because these guys are gross. And they are like completely designed. The way they sound when they move is very distinctive. The way they are lit is distinctive. Everything about them is horrifying and amazing. And they are our like demon bad guys. The quintessential evil bad guys.
Did they have a name for them? I can't remember.
The Black Skulls.
Okay.
Because we'll get to that. So they give him a jar of something.
And he
drinks
chugs it.
And then he's like, blood for blood. I need more. And he's like, oh.
But the lighting is monochromatic at this point.
Yeah.
So all we see is like a viscous, opaque liquid. And he chugs it and it's like dripping off of him.
Yeah.
And is it blood? Did he give him a jar of blood and
Who
he's
knows?
chugging blood?
Yeah. Is it LSD? I don't know. And then he holds up the horn of Abraxas and he goes, first things first. And then we leave. We cut to Red and Mandy just having a life and living together.
Just chilling.
And then they get captured. Red gets knocked out.
Yeah,
and then
they're
Mandy
in bed and they wake up and they see silhouettes in the house.
Yeah. And this starts the storyline where Mandy ends up getting burned. And then Red gets himself out. And then we know why Nicolas Cage gets to be in a movie about himself called The Unbearable Weight
Of massive talent.
Because the bathroom scene, sometimes movies are good. The whole movie is good. But then there's a scene in the movie that you're like, oh, that cooked, as they would say. Yeah.
That anchors the movie.
Yeah. Like in Near Dark, the bar scene for me, the rest of Near Dark is hit or miss. But the bar scene is one of my favorite vampire scenes from pretty much any vampire property. The bathroom scene where it's like, I like to imagine they had a script for this part and Nick was like, no, just set up the tripod. Let me work. It's a still room. It's clearly like a 3-walled set where they are filming him inside this set. He is in tighty whities and his tiger shirt. He has been stabbed. He just freed himself from barbed wire after watching his wife die.
His wrists are all chewed up and bloody.
Yeah, he was stabbed with like the knife of the pale knight or something like that.
Yeah. The sword of the pale knight directly from the abyssal lair.
But yeah, directly from the abyssal lair. And then Jeremiah does you know what Jesus's mistake was? He didn't choose someone else to get sacrificed in his stead. And then he leaves, which I love that line. But anyway, he comes back in and there's a commercial is playing on the TV for Cheddar Goblin. Cheddar Goblin, the macaroni and cheese.
What?
They have Cheddar Goblin.
That's how we know this is an alternate reality.
They have Cheddar Goblin merchandise. I want a Cheddar Goblin shirt. It's goblin good because the kids are like, oh no. And then the goblin barfs macaroni and cheese all over them.
All over the kids and their plates.
Bowl. And they're like, yay, Cheddar Goblin. I love that so much. And then he goes in the bathroom and it's literally a fixed position as we watch him like go over, fall on his knees, pull out a bottle of vodka.
And it's all one shot.
Yeah.
And I love it when an actor can just fully commit to just like all out like screaming.
Yeah.
Because I've heard when actors talk about like, oh yeah, you have to get into it and whatever, and they'll have people like as an acting exercise. Okay, now yell like in Full Metal Jacket. You know, give me your war face or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to like break people out of the societal norms of, you know, controlling your voice, like inside voice kind of thing, and just say completely disregard that anybody is observing you right now, and just go all out yelling.
Yeah.
And
That's what
Nicolas
he does.
Cage does it.
Yeah. And then it devolves into sobbing and then back into screaming.
He goes
is so
through
good.
multiple stages of grief.
Yeah.
In this one scene,
While chugging vinegar.
fueled by
vodka.
2/3 of a bottle of vodka.
Some of it he pours on his wounds, and then he screams some more, and then he screams in the mirror. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, time to murder. Time to do some murderizing.
Except he never explains what he's doing.
No. The next scene, we just see him driving up to his friend's trailer.
Don't tell.
That's probably why I like this movie so much, because we don't get a lot of exposition. We just get him screaming in the bathroom, and then he's all cleaned up. He gets in the car, he drives over to his friend's, and he's like, I need it. And it turns out he has weapons stashed at his friend's trailer. And his friend's like,
sure, why not?
His friend's like, what you need it for? And he goes, I'm going hunting. And then he's like, oh, okay, so what you hunting, man? And he goes, Jesus freaks. And he goes, oh, I didn't know they were in season. Which is a funny line when you say it now, but in the context of it, you're like, oh my God. And this is where we get our one small amount of exposition. Because this guy
explains about the
black skulls
of the black
and
skulls.
how they might just be products of this person named the chemist. And that he cooked up a special batch just for them, and that they went under and never came back up. And they mentioned the chemist earlier too. Jeremiah Sands says we wasted some of the chemist's best on your girl. He doesn't say girl, he says whore. And I just want to point out how big of a pet peeve that word is for me. I get it. We all get it, right? Okay, women who've had sex with more than one person are dirty and awful. Can we retire that as an insult? Just, maybe not in real life, I'm sure at some point. I don't know, but we should retire it in general. Like I advocate for retiring it from the English language, because if I have to read one more book where that is the go-to insult, or watch one more movie where that is the go-to insult, I'm going to scream. And then I'm going to throw the book, and then I'm not going to read it anymore. So tired of whore. Okay, we get it. It's not
sex for fun is bad.
It's not the flex you think it is.
Bad for having sex for fun.
You know what? I need to get the there's a welcome mat that says this isn't a whore house, it's a whore home. And put it outside, and I feel like that would make it would warm my heart every time I walked in. Like, that's right, this is a home.
Yeah.
This is a place where people live. Anyway, this begins his, honestly,
downward spiral.
This is the best. I love the rampage. I love a rampage. I love the good rampage. And this has a good rampage. He even forges a weapon at the beginning. Why he has a cave full of smelting materials and blacksmithing tools, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Why did he have a crossbow hidden at his friend's trailer? That's not what this movie's about.
It's just more character background that's hinted at and never explained.
We need a Red origin story. I petition for a Red origin story. Because there's a story there. Because he is not even a little bit hesitant about going and killing these people. His friend's even like, oh, I made some special arrows. They're up in the cupboard.
It reminds me about this character in Black River Orchard. And he's this kind of Native American guy. But every time we're from his perspective, he's constantly like inner monologuing. I'm letting peace flow out of my heart. And at one point, someone pulls a gun on him, and he just snatches the gun away from the guy and like disassembles it in front of him. And he's like, I am capable of very much violence, and I am choosing to not do any to you.
It's exactly what this character is. It takes us an hour and 15 minutes to get to this point, because when he holds up the forged weapon is when we get the brown Mandy title card.
Yeah.
And that's an hour and 15 minutes in.
Into a 2-hour movie.
So it's only 45 minutes worth of rampage. And honestly, I remember this movie because this movie burns itself in your brain.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I remembered all the scenes.
Rachel's like, okay, we need to go rewatch Mandy so we can record. But we'd watched it, like a year and a half ago or longer?
2 years maybe or longer, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty close to the start of the podcast. And I think you talked to somebody else about it.
I was on another podcast where we talked about it.
And so me and you watched it together. I didn't talk to anybody about it except you. And it's been almost 2 years. And Rachel said, let's go watch it again. And I thought, I could just go talk about it right now. Like it still
in
feels
there.
fresh.
Because it's so unique. You haven't watched anything like
Right,
it
it
since
hasn't
then.
been like overwritten by copycats.
No, nothing.
It's
else
a piece
is
of
like
art.
this. This is one of the most unique cinema experiences I think I have ever had.
Right. Someone had a vision and there were no compromises made on that vision.
No, and it definitely pays off.
And we need more movies like this.
And why does it have 6.5 stars? That's just ridiculous. Because once we go on the rampage, stuff happens. He gets captured almost immediately because he tries to run over a man covered in a armor suit of nails with a car. He's not thinking straight. It's fine. He ends up chained to this pipe with his one hand is nailed to the floor and the other hand is like holding the pipe. And he unscrews the pipe and whacks this guy in the head. Maybe a woman, doesn't matter. She's very squelchy. Matt just showed me it's got 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the tomato meter is critics.
Exactly.
So, and the Metascore on IMDb was really high too.
Okay.
So critics give it a really great score. Audiences are like, I don't know what the fuck. I mean, if you are the type of person for whom Marvel is peak cinema
You
and
might not
you
get
maybe
as much out of this.
don't enjoy other types of movies, this is maybe not the movie for you.
But that's okay.
And that's
because
fine.
this movie was made for the kind of people that like this kind of movie.
Yeah, who are looking for a unique cinema experience. We don't get a lot of those, right?
Yeah.
Like the reason 2001: A Space Odyssey, pause for moment of revulsion, is as beloved as it is because when you sat down to watch that, you had never seen anything like that ever in your life.
Right.
When that came on in the movie theater, it was like, holy fucking shit, what is this? Same thing with Star Wars. They are pioneers at the time, and they feel ubiquitous and derivative now, but
right,
because
they've been copied so much.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't get a lot of completely unique cinema experiences because we get so bombarded with content that you get overwhelmed and then content becomes derivative. Like I just got I get these stupid emails that are like, here's how to be better at everything that you suck at on social media. Like, thanks. Thank you for that. And it was like, oh yeah, no, the branding for next year is going to be authenticity. Here's how to be authentic in a trendy way that keeps you on top of the curve.
Here's how to artificially construct a seeming of authenticity.
Here's how to manufacture your authenticity so that it goes viral. Would you like us to help you with that? No, thanks. I think I've got a handle on the authenticity shit, okay? Mostly because listening to other people sounds like, ugh. I mean, you know what I mean, listening design wise and all the trendy but that's beside the point. This is a wholly unique cinema experience, and it is in part due to the lighting, the pacing, the story structure, and the chainsaw sword fight.
And I think a lot of what makes this movie so good is the things that they leave out
Yeah.
that would have been put in to make it more palatable.
This is a difficult thing to achieve. It's difficult in literature. It's difficult in movies. The minimalism as a way of inferring a larger world.
Yeah.
And they do, and it pays off. Like, how did he know how to get to the chemists? Because he kills all the guys. We get my favorite scene in the whole movie where he gets his shirt cut. And then he goes, that was my favorite shirt. And then he starts.
And then when he fights the guy again.
Yeah, you ripped my shirt. It's my favorite. I love it. And then he interrupts a guy doing a literal mountain of cocaine who trips and stabs the floor with his own knife dick. And then he slashes his throat while he's over top of him, and blood pours all over his face, and he starts laughing, which is why he's covered in blood for the whole rest of the movie. And then he does like probably a tablespoon of cocaine off of a piece of broken glass. And then he sticks his finger in a jar on the counter and sticks it in his mouth and is like, whoa, his face melts.
And this looks like the jar of stuff that the guy chugged at the beginning.
Right. And he just touches a piece of it to his tongue. And then his eye, like his pupils blow out, which is a thing that happens a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
Is we get really big pupils because drugs are a huge theme. But he goes from there to the chemist. Nobody tells him how to get there. He doesn't get directions. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. So he walks into the chemist's, and the guy turns around and he starts talking to him like they are having a conversation.
Oh, the chemist is having a conversation. We just don't get to see what he's getting off of.
Yeah, Nicolas
Red.
Cage is just staring at him. And first he introduces him to his tiger. He's like, this is my tiger, Lizzie. When she's calm, I know my shit is good, because he makes drugs, right? And then he licks his finger because he just had his fingers in the acid solution.
Yeah.
And so he's tripping. And then he looks at Nicolas Cage and he goes, no, you're right. And then he just pushes a button and lets the tiger go. And he's like, goodbye, Lizzie. And then they have this whole conversation, which is wild because they're not having a conversation. Only the chemist is talking. But it's these long scenes of just Nicolas Cage's face, as if there is dialogue there. And then we cut back to the chemist, and then we get a long shot of his face. And then finally he's like, man, they did you wrong. They should not have done that. And then he tells him where to find him. He's like, north. So then he's riding on a four-wheeler through a tunnel. I don't know where any of this is happening. It's so surreal. Is it day? Is it night? What is the setting? Who even knows? Who even cares?
Right. And he's going through this giant, like, jagged mountain canyon.
Yeah.
Where is this? Who knows?
It doesn't matter.
We don't care.
And they're building a church. This is the Children of the New Dawn. That's the name of the cult. And they are building a church. And so he's watching them. And one of them drives off in the van. And he's gotten like caltrips from the black skulls.
They were in the sink.
Yeah. I mean, he killed them all. He looted their place, did a little bit of drugs. And now he disables a vehicle using some of their equipment. And then he stabs that guy in the mouth, which is probably one of the most... It's gross because of all the squelching. Because the guy's talking and then you just see him stab. You see Red stab with this weapon.
It's not even a stab. He like gently places it in the guy's mouth.
Yeah.
And then just starts pushing.
Right.
Like slowly.
Yeah. It's brutal. And then he lets the one girl go because she really wasn't a part of any of it.
Right. She wasn't really complicit. She was still... I didn't get the sense that they had gotten her to do anything compromising yet.
And then we get a really good moment, which just underscores how finely aligned this walks between horror, absurdity, and comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nicolas Cage decides to kill the next guy with a chainsaw. And it's just a regular chainsaw. And so the guy sees it, laughs, walks behind a pile of logs, and pulls out what is probably a 6-foot-long chainsaw.
4 feet.
No, it's long. He drags it along the ground. And then we have a chainsaw sword fight, which I guess they did in one night. And Panos Cosmatos, the director, said it was like hell. It was actual hell trying to film that because
Oh, I
of
bet.
all the effects that are on the chainsaw. And then, anyway, then the guy ends up, getting killed by the chainsaw. And then we get the really cool showdown scene between Jeremiah and Red. Because Jeremiah is the bad guy. He's the one who ruined his life. He's the one who burned this woman alive. And he's utterly pathetic at the end. Because he's in this room. He's like rubbing a wall.
Well, he's kind of, what's the word? Swinging. He's swinging between the extremes of like full narcissist who's having like delusions of grandeur and then every once in a while kind of waking up and realizing, oh shit, my life's in danger.
Yeah, I'm in danger.
And I will his Stanley Tweedle survival instincts start kicking in.
Stanley would never. Stanley would never. And you know it.
Yeah. But then even at the moment he starts begging for his life, he switches back. Like the narcissism takes over.
I just love the swing between the grandiose and the pathetic.
Yeah.
And it's very full narcissistic meltdown, but also how thin the veil of cult leader really is.
Yeah.
That for a lot of these men and whoever else who are in these positions of power, who have exercised their power to harm other people, how thin that power actually is.
Right. And how dependent it is on everyone around them just playing along.
Right. It's like recently with the hurricane and in recent past and some other natural disasters where it's like these people died in this warehouse because the bosses wouldn't let them leave. Because the managers, did they lock the door? Did they bar the way?
I think at the Amazon warehouse, they actually did lock the gate.
Now that's different.
Right. That was a few years ago.
But for a lot of them, it's like, yeah, you could lose your job, but you're going to lose your life. Walk the fuck out.
Right.
Become ungovernable. Anyway, so he walks in. Red is standing in the shadows. And you hear Jeremiah. He's like, come no closer. God is in this room.
Calls him an unholy abomination.
Right. And then he chucks the head of the old woman, the petty old woman, at him. And he's like, ugh! And then he walks in after the guy calls him an abomination. And he says, my other favorite, I have a lot of favorites. Okay. It's a chock full of favorites type of movie.
Red's line to the cult leader.
Yeah.
The psychotic drowns where the mystic swims.
Yeah.
You are drowning. I'm swimming.
Right. And I guess this is a quote from something else, but it's actually more like the psychotic drowns in the same waters where the mystic swims.
Yeah.
And I love this. The like, you were never made for this. This wasn't for you. You don't understand, but I do.
Right.
And you're
That's
playing
like
at something.
The term holy has the same roots as the word whole, as in like integrated. Like Red has a whole life.
Yeah.
He is a whole person. And so he has more capacity to, tread into the realm of the absurd because he has more grounding in his existence. Whereas the cult leader, it's all facade. He doesn't have any anchor. It's all just, kind of wild, chaotic energy with this mask on it. And he can't sustain his mind, his like sense of self.
Yeah.
In the realm of the absurd and surreal.
Right. Because he's unequipped.
Right.
Yeah.
He's only a kind of partial person.
Yeah, it's like taking life advice from a 20-year-old. Thanks, but no thanks. So as soon as Red grabs his head, he's like, no, don't hurt me. And then he pushes him down on his knees and he's like, oh, you want me to blow you, man? I'll blow you, whatever it takes to keep you from hurting me. And then he flips back and he's like, wait, I don't kneel before you. You kneel before me. I don't kneel before you. And that's when Red goes, I am your God now. and crushes his head. And then he's like, oh, like a sigh of, like a release. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm done. I got them all. He killed every single person that was involved in killing his wife.
Yep.
And then he gets in the car and we get this cute moment of their like meet cute from when they first met.
Right.
And he was alone and she was at the bar and their eyes met. And then every time we go back, it's a little more bittersweet. And then she's crying in the memory.
Mhm.
And then he remembers riding home with her and being unable to take his eyes off of her. And now he's driving the car again, but he's completely covered in blood. And then he smiles and his teeth are all white.
Yeah, his teeth are clean.
His teeth are completely
And
white
his
and his eyes are
wide.
white. But every other part of him is covered in blood. And she's sitting in the passenger seat and they're smiling at each other. And then the camera pans up and in the sky there are 2 moons. And that's the end of the movie. And I honestly don't know any other way it could have ended. I feel like that's exactly how it should end.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? Kind of like when she's reading her book earlier and it says that the main character reached down into the chasm and pulled out the stone and it
Yes.
glowed with its own inner light that was strange and unnatural.
Yeah, but she pulls it out of this tiger man.
Well, in the animated interludes,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she's also reading that book.
Yes.
And she reads part of the book out loud. And that's what happens in the book that she reads out loud, which is the strange and unnatural. And I was like, oh, I really love this movie again. I don't think I could just sit down. This is not a movie that you're like, oh, I really need to fold laundry. I think I'll put Mandy on.
Right.
This
And
is
that doesn't really happen.
Right. This is a let's take a moment and really experience something. I kind of wish I could have seen this in theaters.
Oh, that would have been intense in theaters.
Yeah. To see it really big.
Mm-hmm. With the like extra intensity of the sound and
Yeah.
the lighting.
Oh, yeah. I would have loved that. Well, I don't know. I feel like I wish more movies were like this. But it's okay to have popcorn movies too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You need a variety. You need contrast. You need light and dark. You need Mandy and Thor, Love and Thunder. Life takes all kinds, you know? But this is a good, like, you want to sit down and experience something. You want to be like, I want to watch a movie. I want to watch a fucking movie. Mandy's a good movie to do that.
Yeah. Like, I want something that is going to stick with me.
Or just share with friends to be like, you want to watch a movie? Got a movie for you. Like, you got a friend that you know likes movies or likes horror movies or likes surreal movies or likes dark comedies or likes dark fantasy or likes One Man Against the World movies, which is apparently our theme for the horror movie series. I didn't think about this, but we sat down and came up with all of our horror stuff. So we're doing Gunslinger.
Oh, yeah, we're doing the Dark Tower.
Yeah, we're doing the
books
Dark
1, 2, and
Tower,
3.
which is one man army in Roland. And then we're doing Empire of the Vampire, which is one man army named Gabriel. And then we're doing Mandy, which is one man army named Red. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like it's a hero's journey. It's a story that resonates with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Not just men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably a good place to leave it, unless you had something more you wanted to add.
Nope. No, I think a lot of times when we like really go long on movie episodes, it's because we're kind of hashing out criticisms.
Yeah, what would I change? Well, I really wish it had done the following. I have no changes. I have no notes.
Yeah.
None. I love it just
when we started
completely as it
recording,
is.
I thought this one's going to be shorter.
Because it's just going, this is the fucking best movie.
Watch it. Here's
Please
an
go watch
hour-long
Mandy.
recommendation for Mandy.
Yeah, this is good. And it's not just a good like Halloween horror movie. This feels like a good, I want to feel something. You know, like when you read a book, you read a book because you know it's going to be an emotional book.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you watch Mandy too. Yeah. All right.
So remember, Sometimes the strangest things are the most beautiful, too.
So be who you are and love what you love. Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.